Are you ready? Come on. Are you ready, y'all? Because I am here to introduce an award-winning playwright, educator, orator, and overall fly person who is making wonderful, magical theater all over the country. Not just here in Louisville. He is a Humana Festival alumni. Yeah, that's right. Who saw How We Got On? Yeah. I did, thank you. There you go. And Remix 38. Yeah, thank you. All right, so we have some long-standing attendees over here. And some other titles for you to check out, either in your own time or in the bookstore, include in this corner Cassius Clay, This is Modern Art, Ghost, and I'm very excited that we are doing Hype Man at the beginning of next season. Yes. All right, so I am overwhelmed to introduce my dear friend who is wicked smart, exceedingly generous. I've had the opportunity to see him in the classroom and in the rehearsal hall, and he welcomes every voice to the table in a way that is actually kind of overly whelming, effusively happy, and I just don't understand how you can be that way most of the time. And is pretty much one of the most off-the-hook, talented, and hardworking people in the industry right now. So for everyone, a round of applause for Idris Goodwin.
That was beautiful. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Jane. That's like probably the first thing is you know, surround yourself with good people. You know, that's you know, they'll feed you in a way that is really good, because it'll be moments where you don't realize you were hungry for something, and they'll feed you with their awesomeness. So shout out Jane Jones. And so here's how this is gonna work, because I know all of you are coming into the room with different things on your mind, and you're carrying in different challenges and different dreams for yourself, and you might have different questions. And so what I'm just gonna give you is kind of just a smattering of just stuff and ideas and thoughts. You know, it's just me. I don't know. Some of the stuff might be way off base. But what I'm trying to do is just stimulate the room and just get us started. And then hopefully, depending on how fast I read through this, we'll have plenty of time to have some conversation. Turn into a little young town hall for the people. You know what I mean? I'll be like stage manager of sorts. Anyway, all right. The arts, as we all know, are necessary. The humanities are essential to life. We are nothing without our stories and philosophies, our morality and ethics, our expressions and lamentations. Study after study proves the importance of the arts in the development of empathy, critical thinking, cognitive skill building, etc., and so on. The arts are a reflection of and help us process the world. So if you choose the path of the artist's life, you are choosing one that's not necessarily easy. And what I mean by easy is that the road is not conventional, but convention is dangerous. A great deal of our society adheres to conventional wisdom, even in the age of information. And this is why the arts are misunderstood and constantly under scrutiny and threat. And yet, of course, there is yet, of course, there's an intuitive connect and need for what we do. Because we are 60% water, but we are 100% story. This keynote is called Hungry, Never Starving. For the purposes of this keynote, let's consider the starving artist a myth, a spook story that middle-class parents tell their children. But none of the artists that I happen to know starve. Matter of fact, nobody I know starves. I know a lot of people who work tirelessly. I know a lot of working artists. I know artists who hustle. I know a lot of hustling artists. I know artists who navigate the balance of multiple gigs like they're in Cirque du Soleil. Also, just quick side note, I was gonna say after I was gonna be like, multiple gigs like they're in Cirque du Soleil. I know people in Cirque du Soleil. And that is just like, that's just the MC in me. That's just like, ooh, that would have been like a slick line, you know what I mean? But I was like, you don't know nobody, no Cirque du Soleil. Because if I did know somebody in Cirque du Soleil, I'd be at Cirque du Soleil right now. I don't know any starving artists. And I know writers, painters, performers, musicians all over the world, and they all take their art all over the world. Everybody I know, however, is hungry. Even the artists I know who have shows on Broadway, who have shows on television, who are artistic directors of theaters, they are constantly hungry for more knowledge and more possibility to push themselves. This is what we do. So the first and very important question you have to answer for yourself is, what do I want? But more importantly, do I want this? And maybe you don't really know what this is. And so that's the most important question to answer. What does your life in the arts look like? Before you make a plan, you gotta have a vision. So here's what I did. I went to school for film because in the late 90s you couldn't major in hip hop. Which you can now, which is like pretty exciting actually. And I graduated, and I did many odd jobs, and I went back to school, probably too early. Don't do grad school right away, trust me. But nonetheless, in grad school, I met a playwright with a theater. I wrote and directed and scraped and scrapped. I started many hip-hop groups. I booked shows. I did spoken word. I started teaching. I bartended. But finally, I hit a ceiling. And then I started moving around. And then I was lucky enough to get a play produced here at Actors Theater of Louisville. And then other theaters produced me. And then theaters even started paying me money. But still I taught, and still I odd job to fill in the cracks. I did a lot of spoken word. I still do spoken word. I got a book dropping in the fall, by the way. Anyway, and now I am the artistic director of a theater focused on young audiences. Why young audiences? Thank you. It's great, young people rule. Why young audiences? I'll come back to that later. I share all of this with you so you know the sort of artist that you're hearing from. It was a long haul for me. I had nobody telling me stuff, or maybe I did and I was just too blurry-headed to pay attention. So I have committed myself to trying to become the person that I would have met 20 years ago. Well, becoming the person that I wish I met 20 years ago. Because some people are like savants, you know what I mean? They just stroll like straight out of college onto like a yacht where they're just shooting a music video, you know, and God bless those people. But for the other like 98% of us, it's gonna be a bit of a grind. Some people will tell you to set deadlines, and this can be really helpful, but also detrimental. So for example, 20-year-old me said, if you haven't made it by the time you're 25, then we gotta do something else. And sure enough, when I turned about 25, I was awarded this big fat playwriting fellowship from the National Endowment of the Arts. I had made it. But had I? I mean, a few doors opened, but nothing really changed. And actually, 5 years later, I quit playwriting for a while out of frustration. And thankfully, I came out of retirement a few years later, and the play that I wrote got me here to the Humana Festival in 2012. And I would like to believe it was purely from brilliant writing alone, but it's a pretty good play. Anyway, I would like to... Hannah's in the house. What's up, Hannah? Hannah knows about that play. Hannah helped me with that play. But I developed that play at the University of Iowa's playwriting workshop. Grad school can be a useful platform in that way to open doors and can provide you industry insight, but you got to go into it knowing what you want to get out of it. So why I said don't go to grad school straight out of school is because the first time I went to grad school straight out of school, I hadn't answered those questions yet about what is it that I want? What do I want out of this, right? What do I want this to be? I didn't have a vision. I just was like, you know. When I went back to grad school all those years later to the playwriting workshop, I knew exactly what I wanted. I was like, I have this play that's burning inside of me, and I want to make sure that it goes to the Actors Theater of Louisville, the Humana Festival. I'm not lying. I told that, you guys know the playwright Basil Krimendahl? Yeah. Basil Krimendahl and I started at the University of Iowa's playwriting workshop at the same time, and the first conversation we had, we talked about this place. But I knew exactly what I wanted, and it was not, there was no genie, there was no like Aladdin lamp, but that's not what it's called. It's not called the Aladdin lamp, right? Anyway, sorry, let me go back. So that's what I'll say. It's don't go to grad school until you know exactly what you want to come out the other side of grad school with. But it can be a useful way. It can be a useful way to help you get where you want to get. Begin to unpack this term, making it. Making what? Making a living? Well, you're already alive. You're making a living every day. Be specific. Find out what's out there for you. The arts is vast and expansive. How deep do you want to be in it? Acting, producing, writing, directing, designing? Whose career do you want to model yours after? How did they do it? Research. Find out where they will be and ask them some questions. Dig into the case studies. And most importantly, find your tribe. One of the lies of the internet is that through the sheer power of instant teleportation of ideas, one can build an entire city. But you cannot 3D print culture. Crews rise up together. Arguments and debates break ceilings. The static that pops in your discourse is where empathy and understanding are born. Find your people and make your living with them. But it actually is all about you. And let me open that up a bit. What I mean is constantly be checking in with yourself. A good practice that I've started recently, thanks to the musician Robert Glasper, is what is the difference between your hobby, your passion, and your gift? And it's going to change over time. So for example, my passion has always been arts that respond, making art that responds to the social climate and making art that's accessible to as wide a swath of people as humanly possible. And for a while that meant as a playwright. Now it means as an artistic director, as a curator of space, right? The passion has never changed, but the use of my gifts has changed, right? The way that I use the gifts have changed. So always check in with yourself about what is your passion, what is your gift, and what is your hobby. And never forget what I said earlier about staying hungry. Stay hungry, but also learn how to feed other people. And you don't need to be wealthy to do that, but what are the ways that you can actually create spaces for other people, how you can put other people on, how you can use your energy to feed someone else. Tip 3, I had a list, never mind, forget what I said about the numbers. I'm like all over the place. Next tip. And these next ones are just like loosies. I'm just throwing, these are just loose bars. I'm just throwing these out, boom, 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 boom. Don't talk about it, be about it. Thank you. Nobody owes you anything. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. Learn how to negotiate. Play chess. I don't care if you don't like it. Put your smart device down and play chess. But actually don't just play chess, learn chess. It'll teach you about patience and strategy. Law and Order, the show Law and Order, is a great reminder that the pursuit of justice takes a lot longer than injustice. That show always starts with a crime, and like the crime occurs before the credits start. And then the rest of the episode is them pursuing justice, right? Justice takes a long time. Unpopular opinion. Moving to New York right out of school is an educated choice, but it's not the only choice. I'm not saying don't go. I'm not saying don't end up there. I'm not saying don't visit and go to sleep no more and all that. But really take a look at the regions. There's work happening all over the place, really exciting work. Renaissances happening in the DIY and indie communities are happening in cities like Chicago, St. Louis, Austin, Pittsburgh, Albuquerque, and yes, Louisville, Kentucky. Artists, I just read this great article with Sandra Cisneros, the poet and writer Sandra Cisneros. Anybody know Sandra Cisneros? House on Mango Street, anybody? Okay, all right, I'm just saying. It's a great interview, and a little controversial too. She, Sandra Cisneros is not one to play coy, but the one thing she talks about is the importance of low overhead for creative people, because the thing that we do, art just takes time. It just takes more time, and this is why there's always that tension between sometimes the corporate and the artistic. the corporate, the product-based, the non-living, breathing, replicatable product is a lot easier to control and duplicate. Art just takes time. It just takes time to do something really well. And things are done when they're finished, you know? And so if that's the life you've chosen, keep your overhead down so you don't have to like stress about that. You know, it's hard enough to make the work. So look around the country. There's a lot of exciting things happening. Most important, if you take away nothing from me today, this is like the biggest jewel of the whole 6 pages I have here. Answer your emails. Respond to the emails. Pick up the phone, yo. Yo, I'm telling you, because picking up the phone is so like out of style now, when you pick up the phone, it's like, oh, right? Pick up the, just get for a week. I promise you, pick up the phone. Okay. Identify what you can control and double down on it. Double down on yourself. This is a business of relationships, and the more spheres of influences you can navigate, the better. And so what it means is, don't be racist. Don't be sexist. Don't be homophobic. Don't be transphobic. Don't be self-righteous. Don't be pretentious. Don't be elitist. And you can only not do those things if you do the work on yourself by actively seeking out and collaborating with communities different from your own, so much so that your new community is actually made up of multiple communities. Also, double down on forgiveness. Not necessarily your ability to forgive people, but others' propensity and potential to forgive you. Part of the fear of diversity is, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I do the wrong? What if I? It's not about you in that instance. Like, you still got to go for it, and you got to trust that forgiveness is possible. And that's not easy, because we are tribal by nature. But again, the arts exist to build bridges. And this is a pivotal moment. A number of artistic directors and other leaders of our industry who have been at the helm for decades. I actually read about one cat who was an artistic director for like almost 50 years, yo. I don't even know if that's possible. Like, I'm doing the math. I'm like, was he like 13? Like, when he, like, how is that? Was he like a Doogie Howser, like genius of? And so what that means, a lot of artistic, there's a big changing of the guard that's happening right now, which is really exciting, right, for we Zennials. But here's the thing, is that while folk might be stepping down and passing the wheel, the structures and the designs of these institutions are still the same, right? And so we need y'all. We need y'all's generation. I don't know what this is now. This is like generation like -5 or so. I don't know what it is. Generation Nebula, I don't know what it is. What y'all call yourselves? Anyway, all right, we'll talk. But we need you all desperately, because you all are gonna help my generation innovate and make the changes that we need to make. Because we're sitting up here just like, oh boy, okay, oh dear, right? But we need y'all's energy, we need y'all's new ideas. You know, this is not just the information age, it is the innovation age. Recently at South by Southwest, someone clocked the word innovation was said like 600 times or something crazy like that. But that word in this community especially, you know, Louisville is in the midst of a big push towards, you know, really stepping up, really becoming a model city, really getting in the game, really getting in the conversation, really trying to retain talent and draw new talent in, and so the conversation has a lot been about innovation. What's been a little frustrating about that for me is that the arts have not been at those tables enough, meaning we've been sort of siloed and shuttled out to like arts conversations over here, and like let the business guys with their briefcases talk about the, right? And it's like, no, we need to be at the table because A, we made the table, and B, our sneaker game is usually better. So you gotta have, listen, sneakers, that's another jewel. Okay, answer your email, pick up the phone, and sneakers. I'm wrapping it up. But seriously, we need you all so bad. So think about like, yes, you all are tremendous masters in the making of the stage. You're great scenic designers and lighting designers and costume designers and sound designers. You're great people. You're great designers. Panda, panda, panda. But, thank you. But where we really, really need folk, the jobs that are out there are in development, are in marketing for show, right? Especially the social, administrative positions, are really, that's where you can really make your mark. So yeah, like in between acting gigs, in between, until they pick up your web series, you could go wait tables, you could go bartend, you could nanny or become an au pair. But I know me myself in my organization, like those are the areas where we really are needing assistance and really wanting to bring new talent into the fold. And also, the art of creating space, of creating culture, is really exciting. It's really exciting. It's a lot of emails, but it's also a lot of visioning. And when you see, something that we talked about 2 years ago or a year ago actually happen and go down, and you're like, I chose that font. You know what I mean? I mean, it's whatever. You know what I mean? That's a profound and powerful feeling, because again, this is about creating culture, and there's multiple ways to create culture: on stage, off stage, to the side of the stage, across the street from the stage, live streaming to the. I could go on and on. Finally, theater is about showing up, and so is being human. Do not underestimate the work and the power of showing up, of being in the room. This is a pivotal moment to be in theater, especially because this country is in desperate need of spaces to actually have real eye-to-eye conversations, and theater is the way to organize that, to galvanize that, and to spark that. This is our moment, and this is our time. And I know me, myself, as an artistic leader, and I'm sure I speak for my colleagues here at Actors Theater of Louisville, we want you all's input, we want y'all's energy, we want y'all's ideas and your perspectives. So I'm just gonna stop there and just on the last note say, stay hungry, my friends. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. We're gonna talk about it? We're gonna talk about it?
Yeah, we got time for Q&A. I'm looking for, all right, so we've got one microphone there. So if you want to raise your hand and we will come to you. Am I thinking? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Let's start, let's. You get to pick, actually.
I'm closest to the lady here.
Great. Perfect.
Could you?
You just keep talking and then
I will.
yeah.
Could you talk some more about why theater for young audiences and why that's your company and your goals for that?
Oh yeah, sure. Again, it's so my passion is art, as a tool for like social transformation and social progress, and also access. At stage 1, we serve between 60 to 70,000 children per year. Our average audience size is about 400, maybe 500. A lot of public schools, charter schools, community organizations across multiple counties and regions. We sort of work tirelessly to underwrite tickets for schools who can't afford it. We're still trying to figure out how do we reach students whose schools can't provide buses or transportation. They shot down my Jetpacks for All idea. I don't know why. You know, it's that conventional wisdom again. I'm like, oh, okay. I had a teleporter idea, but then like a fly got caught in the other one, and then something, anyway. Hashtag Jeff Goldblum, Brundlefly. But yes, but I wrote a play for stage 1 in like 2014 called And in This Corner Cassius Clay, about the young life of Muhammad Ali growing up here in Louisville. And that was my first sort of play for young audiences, right? And when I was there and I saw the number of kids in that theater, and my favorite moment, it happens every time, they're all loaded up in the theater, the lights go out and they scream, right? And that sort of pure, real, unpretentious response to this work is just a reminder of what the work is supposed to do. Yeah, I do it for those reasons, that it's like it's a different kind of impact. You know, artistic impact I think is very important. Like, you know, I got to know that my blade is wild sharp, and that like I can still make these people cry and stuff like that, in like the grown people theater. But for me, it's like, okay, you've done that. Your blade is mighty sharp. You know, you got the Hanzo sharpness. But what do you want to do with that Hanzo sharpness? You know what I mean? Like, what do you want to do with it? Well, me, myself, like, I want to entertain lots of kids. Yeah.
We go to the very front desk.
Dot is, you're really conflicted about,
Well,
you just want equity.
Mike's walking around, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't.
Dot is all about equity. Shout out Dot King, yo.
Thank you very much. I think my question, and this is a very broad question, but what is one thing earlier on in your career, and that, yes, it could be yesterday, what I mean by earlier, that like maybe you did or didn't do that you wish you had done, or maybe something you wish you had thought of differently?
We'd be here all day. I just, you know, I'll say this, that the one thing that I'm grateful, I've flipped the question. The one thing I am grateful that I didn't do was sort of read the writing on the wall. Like I didn't allow myself to take every failure as a sign of like, you know, this whole goofy idea, this notion of like, you don't have what it takes, you know, that ridiculous bullshit, you know, like, that, you know, I just kind of kept going, you know, and it's a super cliche, right? This like, you can't stop, you gotta get back up, Rocky. Like, it's true though, it's true, because the world, the society, they don't know, here's what's frustrating sometimes about the arts, particularly theater, is that folk, it's an art form that folk don't realize they need it until it's happening. When they're in the theater and it's happening, they're like, oh my God, that was blah, 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 right? And then they walk outside and 5 minutes later, they're like, go to the theater. People don't do that with movies. They don't do that with television. You know what I mean? Like, they don't watch one Netflix show and be like, oh, that was whack. Go watch Netflix. You remember what happened last time? You know what I'm saying? So it's tricky. So everybody's against, you know, everybody's against us. You know what I mean? But you got to have like a little DJ Khaled in your head. Just being like, they don't want you to win, they don't want you to eat, they want you to starve, they want you to just be ashy because you can't afford cocoa butter no more. Like, they want you ashy and sad. Don't let them make you ashy and sad. I didn't hear you, what'd you say?
We can go maybe over
Yeah.
that way, Aaron. And then Rachel is upstairs, so if you raise your hand, she can come to you.
Oh, okay. You touched on earlier about over here. Right in the back.
It's like Hal has a question or whatever.
You touched on earlier how, like, I've heard yourself and other artists talk about, in this time when it's so divided, reaching out and really creating work that's having people talk to each other and confronting and debating and really having a discussion. So how do we do that in a successful and sustainable way, while at the same time we're not just preaching to the choir about the issues we're talking about? And so we're not just talking the talk, but we're really walking the walk in a meaningful way and attracting people from a diversity of backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, this is the work that we do collectively. I mean, first and foremost, we got to keep talking about it. I think that we need to make sure that that the people in our cohorts and our various spheres of influence that we make theater with are actually committed to doing that work, because it's going to be different in every community, right? It's going to be different for every theater. It's going to be different in every community. It's going to be based on what region you're in and where the consciousness of that discourse is at, who's got what resources. But I think that's the biggest thing, is like, how do we articulate sort of our goals and visions together, but how do we make sure that we're actually all committed to the same thing and what that actually looks like? And like, listening is a big piece of it, but also we also can't presume who's in the audience. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thorny thing about these kind of issues, is that part of this ridiculous, overly simplified, like, liberal and conservative, that, you know what I'm saying? Like, because moderate, which is what most people are, is more difficult. Again, it's not quantifiable. It's hard to boil that down. And so, we gotta name the thing that we know, that we feel, that we're seeing around us, and make the stuff, curate the spaces and make the work to be in those spaces, and also think about, okay, once we have people in those spaces, how do we activate them? How do we have the conversation? That's our job, because we know the condition is happening. There's no question about that. So we can't assume to know that, like, oh, if somebody's here, that means they're, like, already progressive. Hell to the no, I'll tell you that right now, like, hell to the no. We go home to our families and are like, oh my God, Uncle Dave, you know what I mean? Like, of course. You don't know who's in that theater. You don't know who is in that theater. You don't know what happened to them in the lobby. You don't know, you know what I'm saying? You don't know what they read walking in on social. Like, so presume nothing, assume nothing. But, again, it's about, like, what is that you're passionate about? What is it that you're driven by? And then how do you use your gifts, to make that thing happen?
All right, so we've got a question up there. If you have a question, raise your hand, and we'll have whoever has Dot and then whoever has Aaron. That's the order. Okay?
Hi, I'm up here. Hi, do you have any advice for young Black actors, playwrights, directors? What do you think?
What up? You are part of a very important and essential fabric of this world. What we're doing is picking up where people who got us to where we are. We're just picking up that work. We're carrying the fire, we're carrying the torch, and we're just making it easier for the people behind us. But we're not done. And this is the stage we're at. But we're just keeping it moving. It's all about putting the next person on and looking out for each other and creating opportunities for each other, bigging each other up. I don't necessarily align with or love all the work that all of my African American colleagues do, but much like the play is titled, I'm rooting for everybody Black, and that to me is the advice for Black artists in this game, is just like, do not just like own up to and wear it as a badge of pride. It doesn't mean that you're not an individual. It doesn't mean that you're not you and that you don't have something in particular to say that's different and that's unique. But the world still is how it is, and we have got to. We're just somebody did a lot of stuff for us, to even be in a moment like this, and so we got to keep it moving. You know what I mean? Yes, we are in a post-Black Panther world. Hooray! You know what I'm saying? But there is still the shock, right? Like, that's the thing that always reminds me, is that it's like, of course Black Panther made like are you kidding? Like, of course it did. Of course shows like Insecure pop. Of course Atlanta's the best show on television. Like, of course. Like, are you crazy? Like, ask about us. Like, we've been doing this. This is what we do. But what we do is not just, like, what we're also doing is political, by just period. You know what I'm saying? Like, us in spaces that were not designed for us, and if you look at the history of Black people on stage and on screen, like, what we are doing is also breaking ground every time. It's a lot of firsts, you know? So I think just don't lose sight of that, and just, you know, feel empowered by that, and know that you're not alone in that, and know that we got each other's back in this work. But ultimately, like, you're pioneering, you're clearing the field a little bit more. Somebody did it for you, and now you get to do it, and that fills me with so much power and excitement to know that that's what I'm actually out here doing. It's just like just cutting brush with the machete, you know. Anyway, I could go on and on. Anyway, but yeah, great question.
Hi, I'm over here.
Hi.
You talked about a fellowship with the National Endowment for the Arts. I was wondering what you've discovered about the interaction between government and the arts, and how we as artists can advocate for ourselves and pull up a seat for ourselves at the table in those important conversations and sort of ensure our place in the room where it happens, so to speak.
Well, so I sit on two boards, Theater for Young Audiences USA and also Children's Theater Foundation Association. I'm sorry, it's a new board I joined. But one of the big conversations that we're having on both those boards is, like, we are actively in conversations with the NEA about, you know, how do we in the, like, theater for littler people, for new audience members, like, how do we ensure that, you know, how do we get them to see that as actually a really like a priority, you know? I think that joining organizations, you know, there are organizations, arts advocacy organizations that exist out there that I'm sure would love, you know, young folks to get involved with it, you know what I mean? But there are people doing that work that are going to DC, that are, you know, doing all that work. I think that what is imperative, though, is we also, in the arts, I mean, the history of, like, government and arts goes back forever, right? You know what I mean? So I think it's imperative also for us to find ways to sustain one another and kind of protect ourselves or insulate ourselves such that we're generating and supporting ourselves independently of any kind of outside entities who, depending on whether or not they got cast as a kid in their high school production of Our Town, you know, has a pin, you know what I'm saying? Because I hear about these people too. It's like, oh man, this such and such is a big funder. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah, but they don't like theater though. I'm like, huh? Like, what do you mean you don't just? And that's just it? Like, you just, like, no one in theater gets to eat now because, like, you just don't like it? That's just, like, not your preference? Like, so. Yeah, it's real, and it's something that, but it's also something that has been going on forever. And I think the bigger thing is us making sure that we're clear about the importance of the arts, that the arts are essential, making, like, super fire art, but also thinking about the role of arts. I mean, what's made it a little easier for people to sort of write us off and ignore us is that we've gotten a little siloed. We've gotten a little, like, insular. And we've gotten a little bit too rigid in the ways that we do things. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, a subscriber-based model, or a ticket underwriting model, or a, like, you know what I mean? Like, how else can theater exist in society, in the world? And I think if that can happen more so, I think people will begin to realize, oh, this is not just like a place that I go to or I get dragged to. It's actually, you know, it has an effect on what my kids do, and it's, you know, down the street from my house, and it's on, you know, whatever. So I think it's those three things. You know, I think it's advocacy. I think it's thinking about new ways new modes of engagement with society at large, and I think it's thinking about sustainability internally. Like, how can we do for ourselves? How can we protect ourselves and take care of ourselves and fund ourselves?
Okay, we've got a question over there, and if you want to raise your hands up top for Rachel, and then another down here probably, that will come in fine. You just got to keep your hand up until she gets to you.
got any words of comfort for artists whose work is out of it? And I don't mean by that it's edgy or unconventional or controversial. It's just art on deeply unfashionable topics, like 19th century French writers.
Yeah.
If you happen to be interested in that and doing art on that, what's to become of you?
That's deep. Well, two things. But, two things. And I don't mean this to be flippant in any way, shape, or form. I think that this is one of the great things about academia, is that the priorities of academia are different than the priorities of, we'll say the commercial, even like the nonprofit or Lort theater model is still based around like numbers, and it's based around seats and communities reached and boom, 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 boom. And so, yeah, it's like you got to have a different set of criteria. And particularly in this moment that we're in now, the big thing is around like access, and it's about, social issues, and like, like the moment that we're having right now is that, in terms of what people want to fund, right? The grants that are out there, et cetera, are around a certain set of topics and ideas. And so, as an artist, if you're like, yo, I want to get in the game, but I only mess with 17th century French, et cetera, think about, okay, well, is there a way to build a bridge between 17th century, et cetera, and the topics that are really on people's mind right now in this moment? Like, is there a way to sort of, for those things to coexist, to mash those things up? That's one thought. The other thought, is like, go teach at a college and teach 17th century, like whatever. Because academia is much more, I think, about preservation and about, history and about things like that. The other thought would be, I think it's also important for all artists in here as individuals is to identify and find like who your audience is, like who are the people that are going to show up for what it is that you do. And so if you are making something that is very particular, very specific, somewhat obscure, like you got to find who are your fellow believers in that particular theme or idea. So good luck.
Hi. How do you deal with when you find yourself in, in a rut, whether it's creatively or professionally or just with yourself even? Like when you retired from playwriting for a few years, how did you find your way back to it, and what drove that?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I was like later for this playwriting, I just focused more on spoken word, on poetry, and at that point I was doing a lot of like, I would go to schools, different schools, and do poems and like lead playwriting or poetry workshops, and I was kind of setting up my own little tours and stuff like that. And so I just put my energy, my creative energy, in a different place, because part of my frustration with playwriting was that it was too much. The play's ability to exist was based on other people saying yes or no, and I didn't like that. I just have a very I come from a very DIY kind of indie kind of community in Chicago, and so. Yeah, I'm not down with that. So yeah, I don't when I get in ruts, I just move. I go a different way. I pivot, But what brought me back was actually I saw a Spike Lee filmed version of Passing Strange, and I was like, oh, you can do this. And yeah, and if you look at how we got on, like it's like, oh, that's Passing Strange. You know what I mean? It's not, but it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So yeah, you just put it. But I definitely don't be looking out the window, like, why won't they give me a chance? You know what I'm saying? I give myself a chance. I give myself permission. That's another one. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission. Take a chance on yourself. Double down on yourself. You're dope.
Hi. Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Mariella DeCoris. Nice to meet you. I'm straight ahead. Boop, beep, boop, boop, beep. Right here. Hi. So I'm an aspiring playwright, and I was reading the Humana little booklet yesterday, and I noticed that lots of the different playwrights have gone to different new work festivals.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. what festivals you've gone to, and as a young playwright, what festivals I should look to go to.
Well, let's see. So I did the O'Neill, the Eugene O'Neill. Okay. The O'Neill was great. It was great. It was how we got on was at the O'Neill. It was great. It's long. It's long. And I'm going to tell you this, like, I'm going to give you a piece of advice I tell all writers who go to the O'Neill is, so they'll have like 8 writers, right? And each writer will have their own week. So I was last. I was like writer 8. So, but they make you come for the whole time. And so inevitably you just start picking at your play because you're seeing like, oh, Christina Anderson's play. Oh, wow, Christina Anderson's play was fire. Oh my God, Dan LaFranc's play. Dan LaFranc's play was fire. Like you just keep running back up to your room and like changing your own play. But then like you know, it's like you cut too much, you know what I mean? Like you cut up too much, you screw your play up. So like if you do go to the O'Neill, I'm gonna tell you what I tell everybody, and everyone ends up doing it anyway, because there's nothing else to do up there. You're also just like on like this New England beach, and you're just chilling and like eating clams and just like drinking dark and stormies and stuff like that, and like watching plays, you know, and eating hash browns, and you start messing with your play. So don't mess with your play. But it's a great look for you. I have consistently applied to I've done a lot of work at the Lark. The Lark is dope. So if you can get down with the Lark, they're great. They never let me in the Playwrights Week. I think I've applied for Playwrights Week, but I just do it anyway every year. Just to it's now just like a game where I'm just like, I bet y'all didn't think I was going to apply again. You know what I mean? I just do it now. I don't know. But the Lark is a great organization. I don't know where you live. I mean, the Playwright Center is those are my people. Playwright Center out of Minneapolis all day. Playwright Center, Playwright Center, Playwright Center, I can't say it enough. A lot of different fellowships for writers of different stages. There's the Jerome Fellowships, there's the Core Writers situation. If you live in Minneapolis, there's a lot of different fellowships that you can get. But yes, Playwright Center in all caps. Ground floor at Berkeley Rep is really dope. Like if you got like a really, because their attitude is kind of like shock us. What do you like? Send us the thing that you don't think that we're gonna do. I just read that one of the plays that's in development now is a play about David Mamet writing the play about Harvey Weinstein. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, so they're just kind of like, yeah, whatever, like bring it. So Ground Floor at Berkeley Rep is another good one. So yeah. And then we're going to start one here in Louisville, too, so just keep it posted. You're welcome. Good luck.
Hi. Is this on? Hi.
How you doing?
This is kind of like a follow-up writer question. Oh, first of all, thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
So I'm curious about process when you write, because I'm also interested in plays that intersect in terms of like different forms, that it's not just like this is a play, but like this has song, this has rap, verse, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what you do about structure, because I feel like structure doesn't really represent that, like the structure we've been fed. So
sure.
Like, what do you do with that?
Yeah. That's a great question. So there's a few ways to think about that. I mean, one is no matter what it is, when you say structure, I assume you're referring to like the well-made play, or like, you know what I mean? But that's, oh, you talking about format?
Both.
Like how's it look on the page?
Well, like structure of like how this is how it's supposed to go, and also like how it's supposed to be presented to be submitted to places. Okay, so you're asking 2 questions. This is good. Okay, this is good. No. I was a playwriting professor like last year, so I'm like, oh, okay. All right, so boom. So first off, 2 things. One is when you say structure, right? There's the structure that it's been drilled into us that like this is what a play is, right? Like, but that's just one type of cola. Like there's many other types of cola, right? So you get to now define what structure looks like in this world, right? So I don't talk about structure, I talk about arcs. Like everything has an arc. Arc is natural, arc is in nature, arc is in the course of a day, things move and progress. So as long as it progresses in some way, you're golden, pony boy. The other thing is you've got to
One of the things I love about Nsizaki Shange's For Colored Girls Who Consider Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough is the opening of that piece, that great piece of literature. You know, it's like, what is it, dark, oh my gosh, help me out. Dark fantasies of a colored girl who never, you know. Anyway, I'm sorry, it's been a minute. But the opening of that play sort of is like an invitation. You know, she brings the audience in. She prepares the audience for what's going to happen. So you have to do this thing of like, how do you, in the text, teach the audience and the reader how to read your play, how to engage with your play. Now the question of submissions and how do I get someone to because a play, let me back up and say, that's what a play is, a roadmap. And I struggle with this constantly. And somebody just told me this recently and I was like super tight about it. I was like in my feelings about it, but I also hear them as well because they're just like, well, you know, this is talking about Hype Man, right? Which is my hit play Hype Man that'll be here in the fall. Anyway, listen, it's just based on facts. I'm just saying, I'm not lying. It's been to a lot of cities, and it's been a hit. It's a hit play. Anyway, listen, it doesn't matter. I'm not saying it's not a Hamilton level hit, you know, obviously. It's not on Jimmy, you know what I mean? Like, but it is a hit. Anyway, so with my hit play Hype Man, one of the people was saying like, hey, you know, I feel like this play would have gone more places if you had broken things down in the text a bit more about like how someone who doesn't understand hip hop or whatever, or doesn't understand the breakbeat plays could have known. But I'm like, but I don't understand that. You know what I mean? Like I don't, in my mind, everyone knows who Tupac and Biggie are. Everyone does not know the difference between who Tupac and Biggie are, which is bonkers to me. But so all that to say that there is the challenge that we still have that folk like you and I who are interested in writing plays a certain type of way, that are having certain type of conversations, aren't always on the other side reading the plays. And sometimes they just don't know how to read it. And so that's the challenge of how do you retain the thing that it is you do, but then teach someone who's mostly read, like, you know, Arthur Miller and the notorious Anton Chekhov, like how they gonna also read, you know, your joint that has rapping in it and rap battles and, you know, whatever. Assuming that's what it is you're writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, final question, Zach King.
Okay, so I have kind of like a two-part question. The first one is, how do you preserve and protect the rights of your work while it's still in progress? And then how do you allow your work to continue to advance your career in a field like theater where the art isn't like film and television where it's always recorded and people see it and they can go back to it. Mm-hmm. You put it on a resume, but people don't really know what it's about. You know what I mean? So how do you continue to allow that to advance your work and protect the rights of your work?
Yeah, man. Well, you know, I'm still kind of thinking about this and exploring this right now. I know the way that I've kind of gone about it is, you know, as far as the rights piece, you know, there's a lot of things you can do. You can actually, depending on what stage of the play, what stage the text is in, or if you're devising a work, what stage it's in, you know, there are things you can do as far as like getting things copywritten, or you know, if you have an agent or you're with an agency, you know, things like that that you can do to make sure it stays with you. If you get into the world of licensing, which is like now allowing other people to do it, I mean, you want to have like a Sam French or a Dramatic Publishing. You want to have some kind of licensing entity to look out for you and protect you. And to your other point, like that is the way though that you sort of like cake up with work is when you can get it. You know, I'm now at this point, like I'm very appreciative and I love the first production, but it's almost like to me the first production is just another step actually. Like now I'm all about like the second, third, fourth, fifth productions in perpetuity, as they say. Like how does that keep like running and running and running and running? So that's now my latest obsession, and the way that I've done that is two ways. It's like I'm basically all about like thinking about like a lot of my favorite rappers who just like flooded the game with just like release after release, like crazy mixtapes, and like I'm thinking like DMX in 98, 99, like minus the crack. It's not a shot. It's well documented. The man enjoyed that substance. But he was also, he generated, like when he was hot, it was just like boom, 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 boom. And that's kind of how I go about it too. I'm just like, you know, because for me, the most valuable commodity is attention, right? So people say pay attention, right? Like if you can get people to show up and get their attention, like, we can do something. So so for me, it's just about frequency and volume with work, because then it's like you're making money without having to leave the house. You know, people are just producing the work and they're just going online and they're saying, oh yeah, I want to do 13 performances of Idris' latest hit play, and then it pops up on my situation and I'm like, oh great, I'm still in my pajamas. Awesome, God is good. You know. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, great. All right, thank you.